A lot of the African traditions included that village mentality. So if one had, one shared. That was just the way of life.
Everybody, welcome to Closer with Kathryn. With this show, I'm going to introduce you to a very interesting woman. Her name is Luana Graves Sellars. She's an author, journalist. She is a go-to authority in Black history, and also she's going to teach us a little bit about Gullah Geechee. What is that culture, and what is it has to do with American history? So we are on location at Mitchelville on Hilton Head Island. I'm so delighted to introduce you to Luana Graves Sellars. And Luana is special because, okay, first a little bit of background. You have your degrees in journalism, Black history. Mm-hmm. And with her Native heritage culture that we're going to talk about, you've also become a go-to authority on the Geechee Gullah cultures here in the Low Country. So we're going to talk about that. So let's start off our conversation with, what inspired you to create the Lowcountry Gullah website and information that you've been sharing with us?
Well, it's really an interesting story because where I am today and what I planned was not my plan at all. And I've been writing about the Gullah culture and Gullah history for years, and I would always get a lot of requests on whose story I've done and where could they find them. And so I decided to create the website just for a landing place for all of my work. I've written close to 300 articles on Gullah history and families and the culture. And so that was the motivation. At the time, I didn't realize that I would grow into a cultural influencer or a preservationist, and the website would become the kind of resource that it has.
Well, I've been on your website, and actually it's very informative, and I like the way you tell the stories. It makes sense to me, because I've been covering Mitchelville, I've been covering all sort of low country culture, but I've always heard of the Gullah Geechee, and I haven't really figured out, they're blended together, but are they separate? Can you tell us the difference, or why they're together and why they are separate?
Well, they're together now because they've become interchangeable. However, there are several different stories behind where the name Gullah and Geechee came from. The Gullah Geechee are descendants of West Africa. And so as descendants, they came from several different countries within Africa, and the culture really became a blending of those different cultures. And so the combination of those cultures essentially was a result of, there were a couple of tribes in Africa, one that was pronounced Gullah, and there's another one called Gullah, and there's another one called a Geechee. And so, again, there's no specific right answer. However, because of those names and because of the blending of those cultures, that's how the Gullah and the Geechee names kind of came to be. In a technical sense, the Gullah are the slaves that were from South Carolina into North Carolina, and the Geechee are considered the slaves that were from the Ogeechee River in Georgia and south into Florida. But growing up, I had an aunt I grew up in New York, and my aunt, who was born in Charleston, used to say that she was a Geechee, and I didn't know what that was, as a child. So now that I know, in the technical sense, she would have been a Gullah, not a Geechee. However, because there was that blending and really migration and combination of people through slavery, those names have become interchangeable. So it is not wrong if you're a Geechee from South Carolina or a Gullah from Georgia, but
so the territories was sort of what happened. It was brought us, but now we've seen to be we're the Lowcountry, which has brought everybody together.
Exactly.
And created a community.
Exactly.
And that's what brought us here to Mitchelville, which is the Freedom Park. We've talked about this a few times in our show with the history, but what I love having Luana here is that you're going to give us another perspective.
Yes.
So we're going to go inside because there's some history that we're going to talk about.
Absolutely.
So Luana and I are going to walk Mitchelville, and we're going to explore some of the buildings that they have, such as here. This is a traditional house. A family would live here. I think the size is about 10, 15, 15. And within a family, how many kids would there be?
Sometimes families would have upwards of 15, 17 children. So if this was the home, this is where everybody was. And they would spend the day, on Mitchelville, they would have a plot of land that they would farm, and whatever crops they got out of the farming, they could sell to the soldiers, or if they were out on the water, they would fish and, do that as well. So Mitchelville was really a working town.
And there was a community that really supported each other as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So let's go over to the Praise House, because I think religion was very important to that, to the religion, to the culture, to the day in the life, right?
Yes, because one of the things about the Gullah is that a lot of the African traditions included that village mentality. So if one had, one shared. That was just the way of life.
So let's go over there. And we're at the Praise House, and within this culture, religion was very important.
Yes.
So were the religions blended? Was it the African and the Christianity, or did they keep it separate?
Yes, it was a blended religion between Christianity and African traditions that were carried through the generations. And so a lot of the slaves, because they were enslaved by Christians, they knew the Bible. But in addition to those traditions, they brought over certain cultural aspects. For instance, if someone wanted to join the church, they would do something called seeking, which means that they would tie a string around their forehead so people could visually see that they are in a seeking mode or going through seeking. And that person would need to essentially isolate themselves until they had a good idea of and a dream or state of mind that explained to them what their purpose in the religion was. And so they would then take that to an elder and explain, and if the elder accepted that vision that they had, then they were able to come into the church. If the elder felt that they needed to go back and try again, they would have to go back and try again.
Isn't that interesting? They had meditation back then.
Absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
we're all trying to figure out ourselves and where we all believe and all that, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
I did not know that story.
Yeah, and they would do it in the woods. They would go off into the woods, to isolate themselves just so that they could have that time to meditate.
And we have one more stop here at Freedom Park, and they actually had a store. And it was commerce. They had business. They exchanged money, correct?
Yes.
And they provided goods for everything they needed to the Army.
Yes.
What else?
Yes. Because we have Fort Howell down the street and Fort Mitchell on the island as well. There was a lot of opportunities for the Mitchelville residents to make some money. It was a completely self-serving, self-sufficient town where they had their own style of government and compulsory education and all of the elements that a town included.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, it was all right here. It all started here.
Yes.
So let's go over here because I know you have some deep history, and let's sit down and we'll talk about that.
Okay.
So Luana, look at this tree. It's beautiful. It's old. It looks like it has some history to Mitchelville. It looks like it's been here during Mitchelville. What do you think?
I think so too. I think it's definitely been around and has seen a lot of the lives and stories that Mitchelville has to tell.
I think it does have some stories to be told here. But along with that, I mean, one thing I'm excited she's going to share with us is that you actually have family that was here during that time.
Yes.
You did a little digging through your genealogy.
Yes.
So tell us, I mean, I'm intrigued by this.
Well, one of the things that makes Mitchelville special to me is that this is the ground that my great-great-great-great-grandfather walked on. He was a soldier in the U.S. Colored Troops when the Union Army was in possession of Hilton Head. And through that research, I was able to find that he escaped from slavery on Johns Island and made his way to Beaufort and then made his way here and fought under Colonel Montgomery, who was the commander of the Combahee River Raid, which Harriet Tubman was involved in.
Oh, interesting.
As well as the raid on Darien, Georgia, which was depicted in the movie Glory, when they burned down the town, and liberated Jacksonville, during the war. So
that has been very fun to find this out and start reading
really
about
is.
it. And you just kind of thought, and now here you live here.
Yes.
I mean, your family's taken, what, 6, 7 generations?
Yes.
Full circle.
Yes, exactly, and had no idea when I'd been coming here. I've been coming here all my life, but had no idea the depth of the connection that I would have to this island through my family.
Wow. Well, Luana, you have been so delightful. I want to thank you so
you.
much for joining me. And for you, if you want to learn more about the Gullah Geechee community, you have a website, lowcountrygullah.com. And you are actually a really great writer. I love your story writing.
Thank you.
And I could feel the passion in the words, and so I want to thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me.
And I hope you enjoyed our show today, Coastal with Kathryn. Do me a favor, like, share, and comment on our shows. We would like to bring you more shows in the future. And thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.